Hi, Deacon Ed here for part 2 of our series on what does Christmas really mean. And in the last video, I pointed out that there are all kinds of stories and movies and experiences associated with the Advent Christmas season that really can be a lot of fun, but don't often help us understand what the true meaning of Christmas is. And so I suggest that we turn to these infancy narratives, these stories about Jesus' birth. And they are only found in 2 books in the entire Bible. When you look at the New Testament, there are 27 books in the New Testament. And the stories of Jesus' birth are only found in Matthew's Gospel and in Luke's Gospel. If we only had Paul's letters and the Gospel of Mark and John, we would know nothing about Jesus' birth. We'd know nothing about shepherds and magi and stars, the angels appearing to Mary and Joseph, none of that. We only know about these birth stories from Matthew and Luke. And they have a couple of things in common. First of all, Mary, Jesus, and Joseph show up in both stories. We have angels showing up in both Matthew's story and in Luke's story. And of course, in both stories, Jesus is born in Bethlehem. And in both stories, they end up where Jesus grows up in Nazareth, 90 miles north of Bethlehem. But if you sit down and read Matthew's account and Luke's account, you will discover that they have many things that don't appear in one or the other. For instance, the Magi appear, the kings, the Magi appear in Matthew's story, but not in Luke. In Luke's story, the shepherds appear there, but not in Matthew. Matthew starts out with this long family genealogy that goes back all the way to Abraham. Luke has, as his introduction, the story of the angel Gabriel appearing to Zechariah in the temple and then appearing to Mary up in Nazareth. And then we have the announcement of the birth of John the Baptist. And in Matthew's gospel, Zechariah and Elizabeth don't appear. The angel Gabriel doesn't appear to Mary, but instead appears to Joseph in a dream. In Matthew's gospel, Joseph lives in Bethlehem and has a house there. In Luke's gospel, Joseph lives in Nazareth, 90 miles north, but comes down to Bethlehem for the birth of Jesus because the Roman emperor is calling for a census. And he's taken a census of all of Israel, and Joseph has to go to his hometown of Bethlehem. But he lives in Nazareth. So there are all these differences between these 2 stories. In Luke, Zechariah, after John is born, sings this song, and then when Mary goes to visit Elizabeth, Mary sings this song. In Matthew's gospel, Mary doesn't visit Elizabeth. Zechariah isn't there and doesn't sing a song. In Matthew, Herod is visited by the Magi, and he tries to kill Jesus. In Luke, there's no Herod, no Magi, no star. So what are we to make of these stories that have some things in common, but have some real differences? I'm going to get into that in the coming days, but I want to point out one more thing that you should notice. Not only do these things have some things in common, not only do these stories have some real differences, but these stories are stuffed. They are stuffed with all kinds of Old Testament references that we would often miss. Let me just point out 2 major ones. In Luke's gospel, Zechariah and Elizabeth are very old. Elizabeth is barren, can't have a child. And they are modeled after Abraham and Sarah. Remember, Abraham and Sarah were very old. Sarah was barren, couldn't have a child. And Elizabeth, in her own way, is modeled after some other Old Testament women. In Matthew's Gospel, Jesus, in some ways, is modeled after Moses. Remember, it was the Pharaoh who wants to kill the firstborn Israelites, and Moses' mother puts Moses in a basket and puts him in the Nile and hides him away. And it's Moses who flees Egypt, and it's Jesus who is about to be killed by Herod and flees into Egypt. And then when Herod dies, Jesus and Joseph and Mary leave Egypt and come back to Israel. And so Jesus is depicted as this little Moses who is going to be the one through whom God will free Israel. So these are rich, diverse stories. I encourage you to pick up your New Testament and read Matthew's account, read Luke's account. In the coming days, I'm going to take sections of Matthew. I'm going to take you through Matthew's account, and I'll spend 2 days on Matthew and then 2 days on Luke. And the idea will be to help you to see that these stories are really about the adult Jesus, the risen, crucified and risen Jesus, and about us and our discipleship. See you in the next video.